lot to get to on a very busy Tuesday in New York City. Evan and Tiki coming up in about an hour. Tiki's not even aware of this. Every single person who calls up this show, including myself, will formally apologize to Tiki Barber.
Why? What did I?
Why? Oh, you'll find out. Coming up in about an hour, we'll check in with Connor Hughes. Connor is the one who broke the big news of the day that the New York Jets are firing Joe Douglas. He will join us at 2:45. We'll get to the Giants. Juan Soto potentially going to L.A. There's a lot of stuff to get to. But let's start with our reaction to the news. If you're just tuning in, if you're just waking up, if you just got out of a lunch meeting.
Just wake it up.
Yeah, some people sleep till 2 o'clock.
Man.
That's what Tommy does on the weekends. You are about to find out that the New York Jets decided to fire Joe Douglas. He is now gone as general manager. And you know the moment he truly did get fired wasn't today, November 19th. The moment he got fired, Tiki, was the moment that Woody Johnson usurped him and fired Robert Saleh on his own. He was dead. It was over. It's like someone coming to us and saying, all right, Evan and Tiki, you're still hosting the afternoon show, but we're not going to turn your mics on, okay? Well, then you're not hosting the afternoon show.
You're sitting in your job, but you're not doing anything.
Correct. You're getting a paycheck, and you also know, well, inevitably, they're no longer going to give me a paycheck because they don't want me to do said job. Once Woody Johnson decided to fire Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, Tiki, was dead man walking.
He was, and a lot of people will say it was overdue because of how mediocre the Jets have been, and especially once this season got off to the slow start that it did. Like this experiment, this grand experiment. First of all, let's back up. You draft and you miss on a franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. You don't put enough around him, and then you, desperation, go get Aaron Rodgers. He gets hurt right away. He's 40 years old, 39, inevitable. And then this year, it starts really badly. He was dead man walking after 3 weeks of the season.
Sure.
Because this was clearly not going to work.
Look, not winning is going to cause you to lose your job. Joe Douglas was the general manager for 5.5 years. They played 93 games, and they were 30-63. So the reality is you can't survive when your win-loss record is that bad.
No.
But you also can't survive when your owner basically tells you, I'm not going to allow you to decide on this head coach.
And I don't think they consulted with him about it.
No, they didn't. Like, literally, Joe Douglas probably found out about Saleh's firing the way we all did.
Right.
And that's the moment.
Oh, yeah. You know what? By the way, we just fired Saleh.
Yeah. And by the way, there's nothing you could say about it. There's nothing like you could talk me out of it. Now, look, I'm not defending Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas was an abomination. They won 30 games in the 5.5 years he was here. And while he made some really good picks individually and brought in some talent to this roster, you can't miss out on quarterback twice, and he did.
Yep.
First with a high draft pick, second by bringing in Aaron Rodgers, which, yes, it's on his resume. He was a part of said decision. You can't mess up by hiring the wrong coach, which he did with Robert Saleh. You can't mess up by continuously not building the right offensive line and drafting the wrong left tackle like he did with Mekhi Becton. So while you can draft talented players and bring in good football players, if you miss out on the head coach, on the quarterback twice, and the left tackle, and you can't build an offensive line, then you have failed at the most important aspects of your job.
Yep. And it's simple. I mean, it was inevitable. And it makes sense to do this over the bye week because not that Phil Savage, who is the interim now, I guess, general manager.
I had no idea Phil Savage was working with the Jets.
I did not either until you and I went through the list of the front office at the Jets, and I was like, this guy's an intern. This guy has no chance. He's not. And then I see Phil Savage, who, by the way, hasn't been an executive in the NFL in a lot of years.
And he wasn't very good when he did it.
Exactly. So, I mean, I guess good luck doing the minutia that he's going to be asked to do.
It's when you're the general manager for the final few weeks of a deadbeat season, you're basically doing the minor things.
Yeah.
So now maybe you can sign somebody who got released or pick someone up off another practice squad who could turn out to be a gem.
Managing the roster for the next, whatever game.
But he's not the long-term answer.
No, of course not.
But the problem is, so when Joe Douglas gets fired, and I think we all agree 30-63 is unacceptable, and to put that in perspective, his win-loss record was worse than Mike McCagnon, and dare I say worse than John Idzik. Like win-loss-wise, not roster building, because, he brought in some talent. Win-loss-wise, he was the worst general manager in the history of the New York Jets. Like, those are just the facts. Follow the numbers. Like, 30-63 is beyond putrid. So while Garrett Wilson is a gift and Sauce Gardner at times can be a gift, the reality is you need to win games, and you can't survive no matter what kind of talent you bring in when you're 30-63. But I started thinking about his tenure here. I started thinking about the whole story when he was hired to when it ended. And it reminded me of something that has remained so consistent. You can call him Christopher. You can call him Woody. It doesn't matter which brother we're talking about. Ownership has failed us. Because let's not forget when Joe Douglas took over. I'll remind you in case you forgot. He took over in June of a football season. Well, why did he take over in June? Because the delusional New York Jets actually had an entire offseason and an entire draft with Mike McCagnon and Adam Gase putting together a roster. And then the owner decided to fire Mike McCagnon, 24-40, record as general manager, slightly better than Joe Douglas, and then hired a new GM. So the Jets were such a mess that back then they hired Joe Douglas, who was very highly considered with his work in Baltimore and his resume in Philadelphia and everything he'd accomplished as a growing executive. They decided to bring him in at the worst and weirdest possible time.
Yeah, it was almost unfair.
It was unfair to him. It was unfair to all of us. And it was a sign that they don't know what they're doing. And so as we sit here all these years later, 5.5 years later, it's a reminder that while we're going to talk about replacements and we're going to blame Joe Douglas for everything that went wrong.
I don't even know who the replacements potentially are.
I made a list already. I went to hard work, man. I already made a list of replacements because, look, we can kill the dead man all we want. You got to look forward. But the problem with looking forward is that no one with a half a brain can trust this ownership. Whether it's Woody or it's Christopher, their track record is so freaking bad that why would anybody think they're going to pick the right guy and turn this franchise around?
No, you're not. Because, well, obviously, whoever gets this job is going to take it knowing that there's a good chance that I'm not making the decisions, that Woody's going to make the decision.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happened.
Yes.
When Robert Saleh got fired and Jeff Ulbrich was elevated to the interim head coaching position. That wasn't a Joe Douglas situation. So if you're thinking about taking this particular job, you're not really getting the power, are you?
And even if Woody says, oh, no, that was only one time I did that, what makes you believe he's actually going to give you the power? When Joe Douglas took this job and Robert Saleh eventually took the head coaching job, they were told, don't worry, you'll make all the decisions. And for a time, I'm sure that was true, Teague. For a period of time, yeah, they were able to make all those decisions. And then ultimately, look what happened. You had an owner kind of stepping in. So the decision to fire Joe Douglas is two-pronged here. Did he deserve to lose his job? Absolutely. 30-63 is deplorable. The problem is, what sane young or veteran executive with a resume is ever going to want to work for Christopher or Woody Johnson? Based on the resume, based on what you even just said, that you're not going to trust, you're going to be allowed to make these decisions.
Yeah, that's the challenge with this, because you need to hire somebody who has a new look on what the Jets need to do or what they're going to do. You can't desperately try to replace a failed draft pick at quarterback with an aging ex-star or ex-MVP.
Well, hold on. Can I ask you a question about that?
You just can't do that.
Here's a key question that I think is all related to this, all right? Did Joe Douglas decide to acquire Aaron Rodgers? It's a loaded question, but it's a part of discussing what he did here. Because I said it a few minutes ago, he failed twice at quarterback. He failed with Zach Wilson, clearly his decision, and then he failed with bringing in the veteran Aaron Rodgers. Well, now...
That's a good question.
Who made the decision to go after Aaron Rodgers? Which, by the way, I raised my hand, I co-signed. As a fan, I was all for it.
Everybody co-signed it, because why not?
Right.
If he wants out of Green Bay because they drafted Jordan Love and he's not going to be there to end his career, then why not? If he's available, absolutely. He came off two MVPs.
I wanted to make the move. You wanted to make the move. But guess what? We don't get fired for bad decisions that the teams we root for or don't root for make. We give our opinions. I wanted Aaron Rodgers. Did Joe Douglas want Aaron Rodgers? Now, maybe he'll reveal that when he writes the tell-all book that nobody buys. But did he want him? Because that all relates to this, too. When the new general manager and the new head coach, maybe the same person, maybe two different people, when they come in do they get to decide about the quarterback? Or is Christopher Johnson, who may well own this team, because Woody may be in the UK before you know it, will Christopher Johnson, who according to Ian O'Connor, who wrote that great book about Aaron Rodgers, they have a special relationship, Aaron Rodgers and Christopher Johnson. Very special. Loves them. They're like BFFs. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So
After, a dinner together?
I guess so. Maybe they had a few dinners together.
I mean,
Maybe who knows? Maybe they went karaoke one night. I have no idea. But will that new GM be able to decide about Aaron Rodgers? This is the stuff that worries the crap out of me because the New York Jets have bad ownership.
right. And the challenge, you just mentioned it, but whoever takes this job is going to be in somewhat cap hell if you decide to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. So you either have to take Aaron Rodgers or hope he retires or move off of him, which is kind of impossible because of his contract. And so it's not ideal for the general manager, and it's not ideal for whoever's the head coach next year.
Well, it's part of why the New York Jets have the most unappealing job in the NFL, and it's not close. It's not even like, well, let's carry the one here and see
I'd
how.
say Cleveland.
No, this is worse.
I mean,
It's worse.
Cleveland's got a ton of money in Deshaun Watson.
But is that the only reason why you decide whether you're a young GM or you're a veteran-proven GM? And trust me, I have a list that includes both. When you make that decision, that's a short-term thing. That's a short-term issue to figure out. The long-term issue is, will my boss allow me to do my job? And the evidence shows you that Jet ownership won't allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. Look, I ask for two things from a good owner. I want you to spend a lot of money. I want you to hire the right people and allow them to do their job. That's all I ask. If they don't do their job, eventually you've got to step in and fire them and hire someone else. Woody Johnson has a lot of money. Okay, definitely does. But will he allow these guys to do their job? Because with Joe Douglas, he allowed him to do it for a while. And by the way, Joe had some good moments. He had a lot of bad moments. The bad is that they were 30-63. The good is, yes, they restocked the cupboard with talent. But ultimately, they fired his hand-picked coach. The owner did.
Yeah.
What executive sees that and says, oh, I can't wait to work for him? That's the problem.
It's even hard to think about where the Jets go from here. Like, where do you go from here?
I have a list.
Now, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about from a go to work and try to have normalcy.
Oh, you're talking about right now?
Yes.
I tell you, you know what I would do right now?
Right now, it's got to feel like, what in the hell? If I'm a player on the Jets, I'm saying, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah. Your coach and GM both got fired in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Like, what is this? We're in the middle of the season. Now, I know they're 3-7 and they're
3-8.
3-8, and they're basically out of it. But there's still 6 games left.
I know. Don't remind me.
And so
you think I want there to be 6 games left?
If you're a player on this team, you're like, what in the world is happening?
It's a hellhole.
It's just not a conducive environment for doing what you have to do.
By the way, don't you love how Tiki and I describe the same thing, and he uses eloquent words like, it's not an ideal situation to succeed. And I'm like, it's a hellhole. Like, this is the worst situation in football.
The New York Jets suck.
They do. They're a dysfunctional mess. And this isn't me defending Joe Douglas. Like, Joe Douglas's tenure here is a fascinating one in that, pound for pound, he made a lot of really good moves. Like, he really did. If we went through every move he made, whether it was decisions to trade players like Jamal Adams, whether it was decisions to draft guys, and don't tell me it's easy to pick guys in the first round. I don't want to hear anyone tell me, well, Sauce and Garrett Wilson are easy. Really? Is Evan Neal easy? Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to just pick on the Giants.
Right. You have to get that right.
You got to get it right. So Joe Douglas did a lot of really good things when it comes to picking individual players. And I said this to you a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again on the day he got fired. The tough thing that you can't ignore is 30-63. Like, how do you...
Oh, yeah, no.
You can't look past that.
He earned getting fired. There's no doubt about that. It's not as if, you're saying, woe was me. Sorry, Joe, you didn't deserve it. He deserved to be fired. Of course he did. But the way that this all has gone down from... After week 5, firing the head coach, ill-advised, whatever, putting Jeff Olbrich as the head coach and now defensive coordinator, and then a few weeks later, you're firing the general manager. It doesn't feel like there's a plan.
No, there is no plan.
It feels like this is just fly by the seat of our pants and let's make decisions based on how I feel in the morning.
Well, you know what I think it is? And this is what I find real interesting about Woody Johnson. There have been reports, not from me just as a fan saying this, that he listens to the fans. Like, he'll actually check social media and see the mood of the fan base. And the fan base turned on Robert Saleh. The fan base has turned on Joe Douglas. And even in the past, when he got rid of John Idzik after just 2 seasons. Now, John Idzik was bad. He was 12-20. That's a better win percentage than Joe Douglas's 2 years. But he got rid of him really quickly. To get rid of a GM after 2 years, takes a very special kind of awfulness.
Yeah. You haven't even established a culture of team yet.
And he got rid of him quickly, in part because the fans revolted. What I find interesting, Woody, is if you really listen to the fans as much as you do you notice the other thing that trends on Twitter every other day? Sell the team. Mm-hmm. Now, no one can. Never happened. I understand that, but again, if you're listening to everything the fans say, that's the other thing the fans are saying. Whether you like it or not, that's the other thing they're saying. And unfortunately, whether it's Woody or it's Christopher or whomever is running the day-to-day, again, I said this yesterday about the benching of Daniel Jones. Celebrating the firing of somebody is really not a great day. It's a sad day. Because when you hire Joe Douglas, there's hope. When you give him 6 years and they gave him 5.5, there's hope. When you draft Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, there's hope. And here on November 19th, 2024, I hate to say this to my fellow Jet fan, we're hopeless. We're a bunch of hopeless losers. There's no easy fix. There's no easy way to go. I made a list. I have it right here on executives I would target. Dude, it was a painful list to make.
Why?
Because I don't think anybody wants the job. I can make the list all day. I can sell you on these names. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. At the end of the day, if you want to be an executive in the NFL, do you want to work for this? Do you?
It's only 32 of them have.
I understand, but you've seen guys who say, no, I'd rather wait for the better one. Because if you come here and your name is John Idzik, you're one and done. What's the other GM job John Idzik got, fellas? Want to name it?
Doesn't have
one. I'm not done. I'm making a point. Mike McCagnon, what's the next GM job he got?
Doesn't have one.
Thank you. Joe Douglas, is he getting another GM job?
Well, I don't know.
You come here to die as an executive.
I don't know if a lot of GMs get GM jobs elsewhere. Do they?
If they're good.
I mean, if they
voluntarily hang on for a long time.
If they have some success, they usually do. Those guys, I don't even know what they're doing. Like, does John Idzik have a job in the NFL? Does Mike McCagnon work in the NFL? Like, if you're Joe Douglas and you learn from some of the best, man, you learn from some of the best. You learn from Ozzie Newsome, right? Didn't he learn from Ozzie? Mm-hmm. He learned from Howie Roseman, right? He learned from some of the best. And you get 6 years here in New York, and after 5.5, you're 30 and 63, and your owner basically is interceding whenever you want to make moves. Do you really come out of that looking clean? Do you come out of that in a better place? So I wish you were right, Sean, when you said, oh, there's only 32 of them. I'm sure someone will take it. Yes, someone will take it. But will the best ones take it? And will the right ones take it? And will this owner learn from the mistakes he's made? I'm sorry, this is a hopeless day in Jet history.
The Jets killed Carl.
And they're killing all of us. We'll get to your calls next. I'll also unveil my list and get Tiki's unbiased perspective on some of the names I throw at him.